The Agenda is powered by DART, Delaware's transit service, moving forward.
Welcome back to The Agenda, another week in this great season, this Power Pack season. And as promised, we're keeping them coming, all right? Great guest and some folks that have not been on the show before, which we love, and this is no exception today. We are excited to have the Dean of the Delaware Law School, Dean Todd Clark.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. I've been looking forward to this moment. My team has been really excited, and I'm really happy to be here and getting the opportunity to speak to our community.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's great. I drive by the school and I think, I should have been a lawyer. I should have been a lawyer. I should have been a lawyer every time I drive by, but excited to have you here. I wouldn't call you, we're fortunate in accounting. We have University of Delaware's here. Couple miles down the road, we have Del State. Del Tech's always a great school for opportunities here, but the Delaware Law School is just popping with opportunity right now. And a lot of people just aren't, I don't think they're as knowledgeable about your institution as they could be. So for the agenda, we want to make sure that people know what's around, how to take advantage of it, who's in charge of it, making sure that their ideas and their overall care and concern is being looked after at the school and those great things. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Listen,
and an opportunity to talk about it.
I'm happy to share those things about Delaware Law School. We are doing some amazing things. We're going to continue to do some amazing things. When you walk into our building, you can feel the reverberation on the floor as you walk in with the energy and excitement and the vision that we have for Delaware Law School. And not just for Delaware Law School, but the entire state with a specific focus on the Wilmington area. So I'm happy to share with you as much as possible today.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, Dean.
So I am originally from Columbus, Ohio. I was born and raised. I grew up in an urban community very similar to the urban communities that we see here in the Wilmington space. So this feels like home to me. My high school had we were 96% African American. It was, like I said, an urban school. One interesting story, when I started high school, we had about 436 students. When we graduated, there were 131. And when you walk in, there were bleachers that got smaller and smaller. And when I was at school, I never really paid attention to what was happening, why it was happening. But a lot of times we lost people to drugs, alcohol, teen pregnancy. There were a couple of people that were killed while I was in high school, and the classes got smaller. And I remember that it was 131 because I was our senior class president, and we had a tradition where we called off all of the names. When I graduated from high school in 96, in 2000, when we all should have graduated, there were about 13 of us that went on to college, and out of that 13, 5 or 6 of us finished. Since then, we've prayerfully, we've had a couple of more, but it was a really rough environment. And it's just interesting when I call back home and still interface with my friends, just some of the pathways. And they were extremely bright people, but they just didn't have the same opportunity.
That's what it is. Those opportunities for trajectory change just weren't there.
They weren't there. And, part of it is just like reaching back and showing people that the opportunities are more robust than what they believe. And like, I'm a father, so I have a young son. And, one day I asked my son, I gave him an apple and an orange, and I said, make a choice. And he selected the orange. And I said, did you make a decision? He said, yeah, Dad, I selected the orange. I said, no, you made a selection based upon the opportunities that were presented to you. My role as the father is to put the apple, the orange, the watermelon, the cherries, the strawberries, and give you the full panoply of options, and then you make an informed choice. And what my hope is that being the Dean of Delaware Law School, I'll have an ability to do that for this community, for our young Black children, to give them an idea of the full scope of opportunities that are available. And we're already doing some of that work here at Delaware now.
I love it. I love it. So how did you get into the law? You brought us up to high school.
Yep.
Take us beyond the cap and gown in May. you decided to do what after that?
So believe it or not, I began my law career practicing in West Virginia, and I did litigation defense work. I did some employment discrimination defense work, and I was there for 2 years. I loved it, but I knew that I wanted to teach. Had an opportunity to go to Georgetown, but right before I left to go do an advanced law degree, an LLM at Georgetown, I had an opportunity to teach at West Virginia University, and that's how I got my foot in the door. And I was there for 2 years, and after that, I got an opportunity to teach at North Carolina Central University School of Law in Durham, North Carolina, and HBCU. That's where I learned how to be a professor and learned how to work with students and be engaged. And that was a great experience. And then I was there, and then I knew it was time for me to sort of think about the world differently and get some other opportunities, because I knew that I wanted to lead a law school at that point. And then I was fortunate enough to go to St. Thomas University, Benjamin L. Crump College of Law. And so I was there when Ben Crump gave his namesake in order to place on the law school, and I got a chance to work with him. And then fortunately, I was given an opportunity to be the dean here at Delaware Law School.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, such a great opportunity. I want you, right now, the Delaware Law School is about, it's 750 students roughly, and they're making an impact. And tell us about some of the impacts that you're making there at the school right now.
So let me talk a little bit specifically about the impact that we're having with the Black community. One of the first opportunities I got a chance to experience while I was here is there's a Light Scholars program, and the Light Scholars program is a Delaware-based program. And what it does is it works with middle school students and high school students to educate them about opportunities in the law. So Delaware Law School and a couple of my faculty, we stepped up to the plate so that we can work with these young people to explain to them the opportunities that are available. So I've had an opportunity, the first things I did, I had an opportunity to speak with them and to have this type of conversation with them to let them know what opportunities are available to them in the law and how their background could be really valuable in helping leverage those opportunities. A lot of times they weren't aware of the fact that there's corporate lawyers and there's patent lawyers. They see criminal law attorneys, but just explaining to them that there's a full scope of opportunities that are available. We brought them to the law school. I think it was on April 10th. They got a chance to see the Delaware Supreme Court, which was a really amazing experience for them. It was some really dynamic issues that they got a chance to experience. We also do some consistent mentorship with that group. And then for the next 7 weeks, they're going to be with us working with our faculty and some of our students at Delaware Law School. That's one project. Another project that we're working on is the Black Audit Project. There's a gentleman by the name of Justin Hansford.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about this Black Audit Project. I've heard about it. Have some questions, but let me hear it from you.
So Justin Hansford, he is the United States representative for the United Nations Black Audit Project, which really works to help assess the living conditions of Pan-African individuals within the United States is really where the focus is. And so we're collaborating with them, and then we're also collaborating with the Global Center for Pan-Africa and HBCUs. And what we're doing is we're doing an assessment of the living conditions and the human right conditions of Black individuals here in the state of Delaware. So we're really excited about that work. And part of it is there's a scale that the United Nations provides that gives an assessment about the living conditions and the human rights conditions. And we're doing that analysis to see where we fit in on the state of Delaware. So most partners across the state that these organizations are working with are focusing on the city, but we're going to tackle all of Delaware. So we've worked very collaboratively with them, and we have a number of faculty and administrators that are partnering with their group.
Okay, so are they going to produce a deliverable of information that's going to help us understand what's going on?
Yeah, there's a deliverable, there's a document, there's a whole bunch of research and analysis, and they're engaging in some high level analytics to kind of figure out and make this assessment, and there will be a comprehensive report that's put together.
Awesome. How can someone sign up to be a Light Scholar?
That's a really good question. If they reach out to Delaware Law School, one of the individuals that oversees from the Delaware Law School position is one of our faculty members named Kathy Killian and Joseph Fair. So if there are students that are interested in that, we can make sure that they have access to that information.
Great. And what's your website?
Our website is widener.edu, and then you would just click on the the Delaware Law app, and then you can find us.
Outstanding. Now, let's get down into the politics of things. This is the agenda. There has been some, let's call it hubbub in the community. We've had Reverend Al Sharpton here a couple weeks ago talking about the biased nature of the legal system here in Delaware from the lack of representation of judges of color. Mm-hmm. I would think that if anybody had their finger on the pulse of judgeships in the state of Delaware, it would be you. It would be your organization. My first question is, do you find that to be true? Mm-hmm. My second question is, are we having a lack of African-American lawyers, or are African-American lawyers making a decision just not to do it?
So, okay, let me break this down. So I think there's a pipeline challenge there. So the first thing is, in order to become a judge, you got to be a lawyer, and typically you are a lawyer with experience. So I will say that one of the things that we're working on in the state is to improve the number of Black lawyers within the state. And that is something that I will say this, Chief Justice Seitz of the Delaware Supreme Court is doing an absolutely amazing job of trying to move the bench and bar forward in the state of Delaware to enhance diversity. Also, the Delaware State Bar Association president has been very dedicated to improving diversity within the state. So that's the first part of it, right? The first part is making sure that you create those opportunities. At Delaware Law School, we're aggressively recruiting minority students. We are working on establishing partnerships with Delaware State in order to bring more minority students. As a Black dean, that is something that's important to me. When I have young minority students that are interested in the law, I make personal telephone conversations. I just got off the telephone right before I got here today with a young lady from Cheney who was transitioning to Delaware Law School, and I was talking about the need to have success. Although I am the dean, I am on the front lines because it matters to me. I want to recruit the type of students that I want sitting in my classrooms. So if they're in our classrooms, many of our students are graduating and transitioning and taking the Delaware bar. And so that's the first step. We have to have that to create a meaningful pipeline. The second piece of that is, one, getting that experience here within the state and then transitioning to judgeships. So there was Judge Tamika Montgomery Reeves, who was absolutely amazing. She was on the Delaware Supreme Court. She is now a federal circuit judge up in the Philadelphia area. Judge Reed was one of our graduates who was in big law, doing very well, making a whole lot of money. He decided to leave and take a position on the federal bench. So to answer your question, what is the challenge? I think the challenge is, one, creating the pipeline and having a meaningful amount of judges. And then once you do that, getting them the experience to then transition. I do think that there's a little bit of both. When your question was, is it a lack of judges or is it a lack of interest? I think because of the financial opportunities, I think part of it is the lack of minority judges.
Let's just be real clear on this financial interest. I mean, people think they may hear it, but they don't get it, right? So I would say, and please smack my fingers if I'm wrong, guesstimate here, judge salary, you're going to be somewhere between $170,000, $180,000.
About right.
Ballpark, give or take between the years of service and what have you. What is it that you could make on the corporate side being a corporate lawyer?
A first-year associate, $215,000. First day out of law school, $215,000. And so that number consistently grows. And that's just base salary. That doesn't factor in the bonus, right? Which can vary anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000 a year in a bonus based upon the number of hours that the associate builds.
So let's say an associate, we're not going to ask a first-year associate for a judgeship, really. Mm-hmm. You're just kind of figuring it out. So we're going to ask someone with a minimum of 10 plus years doing this job. Where would you say their salary would be?
You're probably talking about at least $500,000 in compensation.
Okay. So
and that's probably on the low end.
On the low end, right? Mm-hmm. That's a tough decision to make when, for a lot of us, our families have sacrificed a lot for us to go to law school. The debt load is high. You finally, as African Americans, it's great to have this conversation. We're only first or second generation middle class.
Right.
This is new. We're feeling this out. So why would we want to go backwards? is maybe the thoughts. Would you agree or disagree?
I would disagree that it's going backwards.
Okay.
Right? Because the way that you've loaded the question in some ways is to say that the only concern is a financial concern. And
that's a big concern.
It is a big concern, but there's also a value of impact, right? And so part of one of the things I was talking to my students the other day, and my graduating students are Black Law Student Association, which I'm really proud of. They've been Organization of the Year 4 years in a row. So they get it, and they're doing great work. And so they invited me to their end of the year assessment. And you know what I talked to them about? There's a song by one of my favorite artists, Young Jeezy, and he talks about put on, right? Mm-hmm. And the whole premise is putting on for your people. And so part of that is, I also think that there's a sense among the minority community that they also owe and that they have to give back. So when I give you that example of my guy, Judge Reed, who was also my frat brother of Kappa Alpha Psi, graduate of Delaware Law School, one of the things that Judge Reed, I said, Judge Reed, how did you give up all of that money? And the firm still wants Judge Reed to come back. And the number that I gave you, Judge Reed, was probably well in excess of that. And he talked about the importance of giving back, the importance of having Black judges in those roles.
The consciousness of the give back.
The give back.
Outweighed the financial.
Outweighed it. And part of it too is you got to allow people to see that opportunity and the value of it. And that's how you value. Like, could I leave, the salary that I make at Delaware Law School would be much different than if I were to enter into practice. I got students, one of my former students right now makes 2 times more than I make, and he's only been out for 6 years. Mm-hmm. But I'm here because I have a purpose. There's a mission. And one day I'm going to bring that young brother into higher education. And I've already talked to him.
He doesn't even know it yet.
He doesn't even know it yet, but it's happening. It was written and he knows it. And I think a lot of times, the other thing that people recognize is when you get into the big firms, some of them, it's not all glitz and glamour and a great salary. I mean, there's a lot of work. Sometimes people get burned out. I just had a conversation with this woman that I'm trying to bring in as an adjunct professor to teach sports law to my students. She's a Black female. Her name is Shanika Tate. She was senior legal counsel for NASCAR, oversaw their entire media rights division, then transitioned from NASCAR and was general counsel of the Big Ten. This is an African-American woman that I'm working with to teach sports law. And you know what she said to me? Todd, I've made other people enough money. I want to have impact. And I said, you know what, Shanika? I'm going to help you have impact.
How can we make sure that passion that you're speaking with, the impact that you want to deliver, is getting to the students in our area, the high school students in our area, the college students in our area, to ensure that I don't even want to call it enthusiasm, because I think that downplays what you have. Enthusiasm goes up and down. I think when you have a passion, it's more consistent. So that passion that you have, what is the Delaware Law School doing besides the programs that you listed? But how are we really are you interfacing with the community? So
that, I'm going to be honest. I could do better. This has been my first year in the state of Delaware. So I'm trying to meet as many people, get my legs under me, establish a foundation, my commitment, my vision for the law school. But I also want to get out to the community. I know right now I've had some relationships with the community education building with Linda Jennings and Thayer DuPont, and they do some really innovative work in this area, right around the corner on French Street. And I want to do more of that. And so over this next year, I want to do a lot more in terms of getting out to some of the high schools. So principals, if you're out there and you want someone to come and talk to your students or work with your students, I'm happy to do that. I really would love to have an opportunity to talk to them about owning their own business and providing sort of business ownership and knowledge and information. What is capital? How do you access capital? What's the difference between debt and equity? To have those types of conversations with our young people so that young people can become business owners, successful business owners, employ people from our communities.
Mm-hmm. So my vision is to really increase this pipeline, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, we have things like ROTC. I know the state of Delaware has nursing and teaching programs that set up that really create pipelines, as well as defray a great deal of the cost for them. And all in all, it's working.
Yeah.
It's working. Having teenagers myself, soon to make a decision when it comes to college, I don't see the same motivation, documentation, and opportunities in the legal space as I do with these other fields. Would you agree?
I would, I think I would have to defer to your assessment about Delaware because you've been here much longer
Delaware,
and you have young people. I do think that there's an importance of having a higher level of visibility within the state. Like I said, the Light Scholars Program is just an exceptional program, but I do think that there is more that can happen. And part of that is just getting out, continuing to cultivate those relationships. Like I got a chance to meet with Tony at Delaware State. I want to make sure that I'm in the, I've reached out to the HBCUs in the area. We had Delaware State came down. I think they brought about 15 students. And when I tell you those students were absolutely phenomenal, I want to recruit every one of them. And it was a great relationship. I did a mock class for them. Now that's at the college level once they're already there, but we also need to do a lot more in terms of the pipeline area. And so part of that is through work like the Black Audit Project. We have a number of faculty. Like I have a couple of people coming in. There's an African-American woman named Wendy Scott who was from Wilmington, Delaware. She was the dean at another law school. She has a wealth of experience. She'll be visiting with us for a year. She is writing a book right now about Thurgood Marshall and his opinions. High-level scholar. I think Wendy maybe she might have been Harvard Law. I mean, she's like, she's like really, really strong. So I think bringing people in to the law school with those backgrounds who also have a commitment. And we also have great people in our building right now that are doing some great work. We have a project called Inside Out. Professor Romy Griesmer did a great job with that program. It's Plummer Correctional Facility.
Yes.
We have a relationship
with
them. I was over there a couple of weeks ago and I got a chance to meet the warden there and some students. And we have students that actually go there and they take a class and they interact with the people on the inside. And the value is in order to share that knowledge, because some of these people are going to become prosecutors and defense attorneys. And it's great experience for our law students to experience who they will be working with, who they will serve, to get some context.
There to understand and to take away that, frankly, fear. Some people may
fear,
you know what I mean, inmates, and say, I don't have anything in common with them because I chose this road, they chose this road, we don't have anything in common.
It bridges the gap.
When you do have a lot in common with those folks. They just chose left instead of right at a time when you could have done the same thing. So I think that's great.
Or let me be real with you. I mean, I'm a black man. So for me, it wasn't about left or right. For sometimes it was about whether you got caught or didn't get caught, right? That's the reality. So I'm very humble and I'm very appreciative of the position that I occupy. And I also recognize that occupying this position is honestly a little bit of luck too, given, where I came from and where I grew up. But I will tell you this, and it was transformative experience for me, because I like to think about myself as this person that is connected to the streets and grew up in the streets, and I still have friends there, and I can understand. And I was at this event, and we did this circle, and there were layers to the circle. The short of the story was, you had this, let's say you talked about your education, and then it's like, okay, terminal level degree in law. Then it was, career. And then it's like, okay, dean of a law school. Then it was, education. And what I realized is in all of these different areas, I'm privileged. And it was.
Why are you privileged?
Because of the position that I occupy, because of the education, because of sort of the relationships that I'm able to facilitate. And I had never perceived myself as that, because I think about myself still as where I grew up and who I associated with and my friends and where my family is situated. And so it gave me context, right? It gave me context that there is a level of privilege, and I have to use that privilege from a privileged position to change the trajectory of the people that I represent.
And that's what you're doing. On that note, let's take three things, okay? Let's say your three goals for 2025. I'm sure you already have them somewhere and presented. What are they for the law school?
Number one, we will win the regional championship. And what that means is typically our law students a third of our students take Delaware, about a third New Jersey, and a third take PA. So since we don't take the bar in any particular one state, my goal is to win the regional championship, which means we will have the highest bar passage rate in all three of those states. I'm committed to that. I believe in my students. I know that we can accomplish it together. I believe my faculty and my staff, they will make sure that this happens. And so that is the vision. And if it doesn't happen, I won't be the dean at Delaware Law School, because I'm committed to that. That's number one. It also helps to address that problem that you mentioned, which is making sure that we have meaningful students and minority students that are becoming lawyers in the state of Delaware. 38% of our students are first gen, and about 20% of our graduates this year will be taking the Delaware bar. So I'm really excited about that. So that's number one. Number two is creating more opportunities for our program of legal education. One thing that I'd like to see and that I'm working on with partnering right now is to create a transactional law clinic. We have 6 clinics within our law school, and they do a lot of work, but I'm really focused on doing creating another clinic that will specifically work with new and startup businesses to help them grow, help them get the legal representation they need, because I think that is an area for wealth creation, and we really want to focus on minority communities. Then I would say the third thing for Delaware Law School is making sure that my students have meaningful career opportunities. If you come to Delaware Law School, you should leave with a job.
I love that. So you're doing the job placement for the students too, and are those jobs, I mean, we're in Wilmington, we're downtown now on Market Street, we're surrounded in this building by lawyers.
Yeah.
They're everywhere here. Are those jobs coming back to Delaware from the law school? What is the placement like? And I know this is catching you off guard. I don't know if you know these numbers, but what is your placement of lawyers back in Delaware? I hear that they're taking the Delaware bar, but that bar, I'm assuming, can be transferred anywhere else. I've heard it's one of the harder bars to pass anyway. So other states, there's reciprocity throughout. So just because you pass it, you may not be staying here.
So like I said, we'd have about 22% of this current graduating class will sit for the Delaware bar exam. Interesting, Delaware is largely known as having the most difficult bar in the entire United States.
Right.
So if you were to normalize the bar passage score, Delaware would be by and far the highest cut score if you were to normalize it for all of the other jurisdictions. Interestingly, since Delaware does not allow reciprocity for any other lawyers because of protecting the Delaware way, the Delaware law, no other jurisdiction has reciprocity for Delaware lawyers. And
Thank
so
you for the clarification.
Yep. And so in terms of just the job prospects, what I will say about this, I would love for even more of my students to take the Delaware bar and hang their shingle here, because that would mean much better outcomes, improved outcomes for us in terms of our employment prospects, because there is a need for lawyers in the state of Delaware. And that's the great thing about it, because it has a high cut score, because you can't just randomly wave into Delaware, there is a great need. I was just speaking with Chief Justice Seitz, and he was talking about the need for more lawyers to provide services to parents that are about to lose their parental rights. They just don't have enough lawyers doing that work. When you talk to these corporate law firms, they need more people that have the sophistication to do that work. There's a lack of lawyers in the state to do patent law work. So this is a great state to practice law.
And just that being said, real quick, it goes back to my other point. And I think this is a great way to help prove my point is, I hear the needs about parental rights, which is major. All right, people losing their families, men and women both going to court, losing their families. I hear patents. I mean, we are in a state of innovation, and have been for some time. And the surrounding area, it isn't just all San Jose, California. Stuff's done here in Delaware, especially in the petrochemical and chemical field. The composites as well. Why is that pipeline from middle to high school to college not broader in scope if the needs are that great? That's just not my challenge to you, Dean Clark. That's my challenge to the legislation. We've had Justice Seitz on the show. He did a great interview and he understood it, but it's time for action now.
Yep.
It's time for action. That we're having this conversation. The needs are there. The needs are affecting people, and we're still back in the same place. You know what I mean? I know that the numbers are growing. I'm sure that we're making great progress every year. We have enthusiastic deans that are doing great things within the community, and you're firing up people. But I just want to knock down as many barriers as we can, because we do it for so many other fields. But it seems as though we're just not getting it done here.
Yeah, let me say this. One of the things that I love about Chief Justice Seitz, we were just in DC for an event, and it was a group for Supreme Court justices all across the United States, there was a special group that was specifically looking at challenges to the bar exam. Like we mentioned, the bar exam is one of the Delaware bar is the most difficult bar in the entire United States. That does serve as an impediment to adding more diversity to the bar. And so one of the things that we've talked about is alternative pathways to the bar exam. Maybe there's a public interest pathway where if law students are having interest in doing public interest work, to maybe it's not as high paying as some of the corporate jobs, but doing that could provide an alternative pathway to the practice of law here in the state of Delaware. That could be another way of generating meaningful opportunities. I also think that part of it is it's a grassroots campaign. It's really getting out there. It's this type of conversation, you hosting the right people, young people hearing this and recognizing this is the other thing that's important. Like young people, you can be who you are and still be a lawyer. Being a lawyer doesn't mean that you have to disconnect who you are or where you're from or what's important to you. If you listen to my playlist, I'm listening to the same thing that the young people are listening to right now. That's when I'm banging in the gym. That's what I'm listening to on the way to work. When I pull in the parking lot, I turn it down a little bit and I put my Dean cap on. But when I get right back in the car, those things matter. And I think that it's important for young people to see that. And I'll tell you, that's one of the things that I did with the Light Scholars, because I think sometimes they're thinking, oh, this is the dean of the law school. He is going to be a bit disconnected. And when they recognize that I will sit down in the trenches with them and I will walk in their shoes, and I have walked in their shoes, I think that goes a long way to say, you know what? I don't have to sell out who I am in order to become a lawyer. Like I can be connected. I can make a difference. I can make money and still be important and an important member of my community.
Dean Clark, awesome having you on the show. Thank you. I wish we had more time. We're going to have you back. We're going to cover some more things, but this is great reaching out to the community. Hopefully the next time we're back, there'll be even more programs to talk about and some things. You're always welcome here on the show.
Listen, before we started, you told me you were going to give me some rapid fire. And see, I don't mind pressure. I love that. I'm built for that. And so next time we come back, I want you to light me up so we can have some fun.
I will light you up and we will have the fun. I might even call you before then and we can zoom in and do a rapid fire.
Hey,
how about that?
Let's make it happen.
All right. I appreciate it. And I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in this week. And thank you for Dean Clark here at the Delaware Law School and everything that he's doing. It's great to see these things going on in the community and the passion and the fire that's there to bringing it all together and ensuring that not only you, but your education and your family's education is on the agenda. We'll see you next week right here on The Agenda.